Hi Rajiv, good morning.
Hey Achita, how are you?
All good. How are you doing?
Good. How is the background looking?
All good. You're good to go.
This is fine.
Yep.
Finally.
Hi, can I do a quick mic check?
Hi Ritvik. Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Okay, you can hear me okay? And
Yep. Can see you okay. All good.
all right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hi
Good
Amelia. Good morning. Good
Okay.
afternoon. Must be afternoon on your end.
My lighting is a bit, I may need to bring down the blinds. Okay. Background, okay? All good?
Background's good.
Okay. Hi, Rajiv.
Hi Amelia, hi Ritvik.
Hi, Rajiv.
Hello. Ritvik, somebody is selling something interesting close to your house.
It's samosa right outside my window.
So we don't have the other panelists on yet, right? Are we live on YouTube?
No, not
already?
yet. We're live on YouTube, Rajiv. But I'm just waiting for the panelists to join. Anil is joined. I'm promoting him to panelist right now.
Okay. KNL, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Rajiv. Good morning, Dr. Ritvik.
Hi, Anil. Good morning.
I'm good. Thank you. So, Rajiv, happy Onam here.
Happy Onam to you too. I was just going to say.
So I was just thinking that, you will excuse yourself and, leave the Onam for me to celebrate over an KNOLSKAPE webinar. But then glad to see that you are equally sailing together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right after this, Sadhya is all lined up. So
Exactly.
we'll work up some appetite during the webinar.
Yeah, I'm just back from the kitchen. uh, in fact, I was telling Mehul we have a KNOLSKAPE workshop on today.
Okay, nice.
There's a business simulation workshop which is going on. So I just excused myself and couldn't be because I'm at home today. Yeah.
Awesome. Dialing in from Ahmedabad.
Sorry?
Dialing in from Ahmedabad.
Yeah, absolutely. From home,
Okay.
Ahmedabad. Yes.
Cool stuff.
Very much. How are the things at your end? Otherwise,
All well, Anil.
Yeah, KNOLSKAPE going great guns. I see that. I'm so happy for you guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anil.
So was there any contribution from your end for the Sadhya today? Or are you the designated tester?
It doesn't need a tester when my wife cooks, for that matter.
Oh,
but then certainly a helping hand in some or the other way that you could.
Very cool.
So now the things are quite available also outside. So
That's right.
A couple of friends who are into full-time Kerala style authentic chef and cooking. So they offer good Onam meals. You can just go and get it by booking in advance.
Nice.
So we just prefer to have it at home. That's a different thing.
Right.
But then you can elaborately have a lavish lunch now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need not to be deprived wherever you are in India.
That's right.
Yeah.
A lot of cloud kitchens are popping up, and they are certainly offering this kind of service.
Yes. So that's a beauty, right? I mean, irrespective of whichever community you fall into, people have started rejoicing. Like, some of the Durga Puja pandals in Ahmedabad is like so big.
Right.
Hey, hi, my good friend Sundar. How have you been, man?
Hey, Anil. Hi, everyone.
It takes Rajiv to get us together.
It's been a while. How are you doing? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. Thanks.
How are you, Sundar?
Very good, Rajiv. Good to see you.
Yeah, I must ask you this question. What do you have for breakfast? How do you manage to look the same over these years?
We'll talk about it when we meet. Huh?
Okay.
So one is Pichai and one is Ramchandran. Like two digital, stalwarts.
Massive difference in the wealth, though.
So you can blame yourself for that.
I know. I'll take that. Yeah. Hi, Ritvik.
Hey, Sundar.
Oh, Rituraj is joining us. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, we're just waiting for.
Yeah.
I think then we can get started.
Sundar, happy Onam to you too, yeah. I mean, we just exchanged greetings between me and Rajiv. Rajiv, I think so choicefully has put up all South Indians together today.
No, thank you.
Happy.
I think Rajiv knew who was going to be available today.
Who can't have any excuses of meetings.
Right.
Rituraj still becomes an exception unless he is also fallen into a category now.
Archita, possible for us to check in with Rituraj?
Yeah, he's just joined and I've promoted him to panelist.
Great.
I hope I'm audible now.
Hi, Rituraj.
Hi.
Hi, Rituraj.
I just heard my name, Rajiv, from you just as I joined.
Yeah, we were all missing you, Rituraj.
I know. Same here.
Have a long life, Rituraj.
Thank you so
How are you
much.
doing?
Very well, very well. How are you doing,
In touch
Rajiv?
again. Yeah, all well. Thank you so much.
Ritvik
All good, Rituraj.
and Anil? Pleasure.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you. So glad to have connected today.
Absolutely, absolutely. We should actually get connected up more.
Yeah, that's what I said. It takes a Rajiv for us to get connected. I was just telling the same to Sundar.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rajiv.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure, and we must do at least that little bit towards fraternity.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Great. Archita, should we get started?
Yep, we're good to go. Go ahead.
Great. So first, a very good afternoon to all our audience members and a very good afternoon to our esteemed panel. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be here with us today. My name is Dr. Ritvik Mishra. I'm a Senior Vice President and Global Head of Consulting for KNOLSKAPE. Before we begin, a very happy Onam to those that are celebrating this auspicious occasion. And we have 3 panelists also who are here despite their personal commitments. So thank you so much for that. Now, over the next 40 to 45 minutes, we are going to have a very engaging and intriguing conversation. And the reason I say this is we are bringing 2 hot topics together, digital and pharma. And rightly so, because the pharma sector has been at the forefront of using digital transformation very effectively in several areas. Examples being drug discovery and development, patient education and engagement, precision medicine, and of course, regulation compliance. Now, we are privileged to have an esteemed, distinguished panel and a very experienced panel to be discussing the topic of digital transformation in the pharmaceutical industry, innovation, opportunities, and challenges. Now, as we go through the conversation and the discussions, I do encourage our audience to engage with us using questions that they can use, that they can put through the Q&A option or through the chat option. So let's begin this conversation. If I can request our panel members to introduce themselves for the audience, may I request Anil to go first, and then we'll go from there. Anil?
Yeah, thank you, Ritvik, and thank you, KNOLSKAPE, for organizing this and giving this opportunity to interact. And welcome, fellow panelists, and glad to have got connected. My name is Anil Nair, and I represent Zydus Life Sciences Limited, headquartered at Ahmedabad. I overlook the Center of Excellence for the Zydus Group for Talent and Organizational Learning. It's been a long journey in pharma industry of 25 years. And for the past 2 decades, I've been associated with Zydus. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anil. Sundar, if I can request you to go next.
Thanks, Ritvik, and hi, everyone. Sundar Ramachandran. I work with GSK and work in the commercial excellence function, been with the company for 8 years. Enthusiastic about digital, so here to learn and share my 2 cents. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sundar. Rituraj, over to you.
So 18 years in 6 companies and next 17 years in Lupin. And meanwhile, Lupin grew 10 times, look after learning and development. And for the last 4 years, sales training primarily for Indian part of business of Lupin.
Thank you, Rituraj. Great to have you here. Rajiv, over to you.
Yeah, my name is Rajiv, the founder CEO of KNOLSKAPE and the author of Clearing the Digital Blur, and have contributed to a couple more books. Really delighted to be on this conversation. Digital is a big passion area for me, and healthcare is a space that I've been tracking very closely over the last few years. So happy to learn and excited to share a couple of cents from my end.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. Thank you so much for that introduction. Now, before I get to the first question, here is some staggering statistics which is coming in from our workforce insight report that we are putting together for the pharma sector. And this report is going to be released very soon. So number one, by end of 2023, by end of this year, 60% of life science and pharma manufacturers would have invested in AI and analytics for supply chain optimization, right? The global digital transformation market in healthcare is expected to reach $210 billion by 2026, and the global AI market in healthcare is expected to reach $20 billion. Right. The use of artificial intelligence in drug discovery and development can potentially reduce costs by up to 70%. More importantly, cut the development time in half. Right. And finally, the application of blockchain in pharmaceutical supply chain can reduce counterfeiting by up to 20%. A great need there. Right. So clearly the interest and impact is well established. And with that, I want to go to Sundar for my first question. Sundar, how do you envision advanced digital technologies transforming the pharmaceutical industry? And what challenges do you see organizations facing as they go through this transformational journey? And of course, how can they address those challenges?
Hey, thanks, Ritvik, for the question. I think, like you said, healthcare, specifically pharmaceutical, we've made significant, improvements in terms of how we leverage digital in our upstream processes already. So, the whole drug discovery process in terms of identifying the right candidates, what therapies to focus on, so on and so forth. Pharma companies are valued based on the, strength of the pipeline. So enough is out there, and that's, I think what I'm personally excited about, and that's an area I'm involved in as well, is you're seeing significant improvements in how pharma is embedding digital transformation in the downstream commercial processes, right? So you're seeing a lot of shift, which is very exciting in how we're choosing to go to market. You're seeing significant changes in how we're choosing to enable, create sales and marketing excellence. How we are, connecting patients, providers, families, how we're creating these ecosystems, how we're moving, to quote a cliche, how we are moving sort of beyond the pill, right? Digital therapeutics is no longer talk, it's very real. You've got several companies who have tangible products in this particular area within the Indian market. I think all of that is what there is a lot of potential to. The challenges clearly is to balance it out. How do you ensure, because I think one of the things we're seeing, at least in the pharmaceutical customer landscape, which is the healthcare practitioner, you're seeing in all other aspects of our life, we are seeing that what we call in marketing, the experience spillover, the way we consume education, entertainment, anything else is significantly evolved. And that experience spills over to what we expect from enterprises. Unfortunately, I think the pace at which that needs to happen within the healthcare practitioners community is not perhaps in line with what we thought it will. So there's still a little bit of an expectation to stick with the old while we transition and slowly move to the new. And that has been one of the limiting factors in terms of how fast we can move. And pharma companies have been careful to make sure that we're not getting ahead of our customers in any way. I think that's one piece. Second, fundamentally, our business model has remained the same over the last, 2-3 decades, right? That hasn't changed. So a lot of the work that companies are doing is really being able to innovate and say, well, can we go to market differently? And you're seeing a whole lot of transformation, which is sort of really on the adjacencies of digital in terms of trade generic divisions being launched, new partners getting onboarded, suddenly the retailers and the trade becoming a significant component. So you're also seeing a little bit of a power shift just from the power that the pen of the HCP had in terms of writing a prescription to where the market is moving. And there's a clear role that technology is going to play in amplifying that even more. But I think the challenge for companies is to remain meaningful. It obviously helps them optimize their operations. One of the ancillary benefits, but an important one these days is maybe reduce your carbon footprint. Maybe you don't need as many people on the ground to do what you do.
Right.
But also, I think create a sustainable business model. With the primary care portfolio that most companies operate in the Indian context. I mean, that's where the volumes are. How do you make sure that you foolproof it, at least for the near to midterm? I think digital is going to be a key lever in allowing companies to do that. So yeah, I think that's my initial point.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sundar. Clearly, there can be no conversation complete without the word sustainability coming in. I think it's great to see that organizations are not just looking at upstream, but downstream as well. There's usually a lot of focus on upstream, but great to hear that you're also looking at sales, marketing, and other downstream activities. And that's how you bring in that unison and the sync across all the elements and make that much more effective from a digital transformation journey. Thank you so much, Sundar. Thanks for sharing that. That leads us very well into this big space of capabilities and skills, right? When organizations have thought about digital transformation, Sundar spoke about mindset shift, go-to-market shifts. Now, in order for us to enable that, we've got to look at the set of skills and capabilities. So I'm going to bring in both Anil and Rituraj on the next set of two questions. Anil, maybe starting off with you first. In light of the digital transformation, what new skills and competencies are essential for employees in the pharma industry? And how can organizations measure the impact of that, connecting them to certain key business metrics?
Yeah. So thank you for the question. And first of all, I really applaud what Sundar spoke, and I agree to each and every single word where he came from. However, when you talk about the adoption of digital technologies or the disruption in digital space in pharma marketing, though we have been relatively slow in India, but I'm sure the way that things have moved up both in upstream and downstream that many of the organizations are focusing on is certainly commendable from time to time. And see, many organizations have moved considerably from what they were in the past few years. However, still the kind of digital awareness of what we speak about, and if we compare ourselves to the Western pharmaceutical world, which is a base of research, today India still falls short about how is it that the organizations are galloping together to form a digital agile practices. There are definitely platforms and tools which are installed in organizations. They have been available today. There are a lot of organizations, coming up to offer such services, but it takes a considerable amount of time to organizations to really focus and pick up that mantle that yes, investment as digital is important. We also see that in terms of competencies organizations want to build up. Many companies have put up the role of a chief digital officer so that that extensive amount of time gets focused on what is it relevant for the organization in times to come. And it's not about here and now, right? It's all about a kind of a strategic perspective, clubbing the entire pharmaceutical universe together, starting from the manufacturing and quality practices. Second is the research, formulations or the new chemical. The third is sales and marketing, and also the enabling functions putting together. So answering the first skills and competencies with organizations, would really need to gallop is the digital agility in terms of practice. It's not sufficient enough to be having a kind of a system in place which people are not aware of. The kind of digital literacy needs a complete shift. It's not enough to have a kind of an app in place and then people just to fiddle with it. Digitization, it should be a facilitator and not a bottleneck, right? The basic fundamental understanding of the population of even the usages of these platforms is something that needs a lot of curiosity in the people to get developed. Well, in terms of strategies, yes, it has to be from a call of a top, because the way the culture embeds into digitized practices and the adoption of it in the organizations is varying from company to company. You see a small part of the organization focusing on it and not putting up in a big way. I'm happy to see that, a few of my fellow partners here have installed a digital academy at that place, right? It's a pure strategic intervention to certify people and link it with their overall growth, reward self-learners who invest to identify projects having multifunctional representatives in place. might be going forward a kind of a setup what many of the IT industries face. Like, for example, they have a hackathon in place, basically related to coding. Might be in the pharma venture also, there have to be some creative way to come up of problem solving of manufacturing capabilities or the research capabilities where people come together and do a kind of hackathon in place. So these are few of my points. While the things are in place, the curiosity, I think so, for people to come forward, adopt it would mean a lot. And that is where the organizations will have to build skills of.
Great. Thank you so much, Anil. I think you broadly covered these two aspects of systems and mindset, right? So from a system perspective, you've got the CDO in place, you've got the digital academy in place. And from a mindset perspective, you're looking at curiosity, growth mindset, important for us to come out of our comfort zones and embrace digital. So thank you so much, Anil. Thanks for that. Rituraj, your response to the same question.
Yes, pleasure, Ritvik, and absolutely great listening into Anil and Sundar before me. I see we have learned a lot in the last 3 years on digital, and we have realized that more than skills, what we are deficient of is the infrastructure around digital. We need to create applications, we need to create platforms, we need to start interconnectedness and the right opportunities in our business processes where this will definitely enhance the outcome of the whole thing. Let me share one example. During the challenged time recently, so we had started picking up attendance, and not only attendance, but health status of each one of the employees. Directly, employee would actually fill up in his or her phone. There would be 12 questions and would write whether there is any COVID symptom, anybody at home has got COVID. This is all while we are work from home, that era. So everybody suddenly transformed into this mobile application daily basis before starting the work, mandatorily to update about his or her health, as well as the fact that he's ready to work. Right. Now, this started for that era and finished with that era. But the skill of picking this up, writing on this, the necessary technology advancement that was required to pull it through was all done overnight, and that was made possible. So skill becomes less of an issue if infrastructure has been addressed, is the first point that was the lesson learned in this. Number two, joining the dots, connecting the dots in the business that have actually got created. I just mentioned about a 10 times growth for a company like Lupin. So obviously the functions have been doing their own scaling up, but how does this actually interplay between, let's say, supply chain and procurement, and supply chain and manufacturing, supply chain and marketing? So there has been a lot of work that has gone on there in terms of connecting the dots. So the skill required of collaboration has become much more significant in the current sense. So my first point is infrastructure automatically generates the required skill, because people then start finding it very easy, for example, Paytm, etc. And number two point is that collaboration between various functions to really bring out a synergetic output is what we have benefited from a lot in terms of our supply chain having become a very, very meaningful contributor towards our productivity and enhancement of system. We've got one of the largest teams in supply chain in Lupin, and this was a team that was less than a third until 4 years ago. So this is the kind of capability build that has happened over last 4 years through COVID era as well. Right. And finally, the point that I would like to share in terms of bringing about the impact, right, and measuring how it is doing. We have created not just digital champions, but we have created a full-fledged company, you may be aware, called Lupin Digital Health. Now, what this company is doing at this moment, for example, and we believe this is pioneering work, what it is doing is, if I am the son working in Bangalore, my father lives in Noida, my mother lives in Noida, and their heart status is on my fingertips. I know what they are doing, if they are taking their medicines, if they're not been keeping well, if they've done their tests, if they've actually got some statistics that are going out of control. So their vital stats are on my fingertips. So I'm not really that worried. I'm just telling you one example of an application of what we are doing at Lupin Digital Health, which is a completely independent subsidiary of Lupin Group of Companies. So this is the kind of shape of things that have started emerging, and we've put a lot of energy around this. I hope this is good for these starters.
Absolutely, Rituraj. I think you bring in this word of, or the world of wearables, from your example. But I also want to touch upon, what you brought up in your earlier response about infrastructure, interconnectedness, and collaboration. And I think we all experience these three. Pharma led the way in the way they came up with the vaccine in such a short period of time immediately after. So great example. Thank you so much for sharing that, Rituraj. I'm going to continue with both of you for my next question, which is very similar on the lines of reskilling and upskilling. And Rituraj, of course, you've shared some examples, but could you, Anil, as well, share some successful strategies that organizations can use to ready their workforce for the future and thrive in the digital first environment? There is a slight shift that needs to happen in the way people think and look at digital and even their day-to-day work. So what kind of strategies enables us to nudge our workforce to start thinking more digital? And are there any innovative approaches that you recommend for facilitating effective learning and development?
So Anil to go first.
Anyone, I mean, sure.
Yeah. So, the adoption of digital, and I would still want to stay committed to the same answer, that in terms of the overall literacy of digital is still very low as what we see. Probably there's a kind of an enforced way for people to learn and develop, and that too through some kind of an additions that probably an OD interfaces make. But then being digital in an organization is more about thinking of how is it that maybe the pharma industry, who is extensively into research, for example, my company, what are the ways that you might want to keep your data secure? How is it that you might want to feed and evolve into data analytics, the kind of AI which is wanting to make an entry, the kind of creative practices that people should think forward to connect to the customers, because at the end, what does it really matter for pharma industry is a customer connect, irrespective of whichever function that you're making. And a small amount of a push in your digital mindset can bring about a lot of difference in the outcome which gets produced through the factory or through a research outcome or a formulation manufacturing. One of the skills that I'm sure before you develop into kind of a digital skill is for people to have a lot of business orientation in the overall value chain of how does it work. Now, in my organization, for example, Zydus, we are an integrated healthcare value chain organization. We exist from end to end, right? And so forth, so Lupin as well. While we have our own API till the time the drug reaches the consumer and they pop a pill, we are there across the value chain. Now, a person who is probably at a section of an API and working probably in API manufacturing, somewhere the kind of an overall orientation that his small API manufacturing is going to be getting converted to a pill and reaching to a patient who's going to be consuming it, that kind of an orientation is extremely important. So the kind of the skills to embed technology would be more for people to gather a lot of information in the backward integration process as well, and that's where people will have to make a significant attempt, and the learning intervention should more help them collaborate these dots together, rather than putting up KPIs only in the areas of what is it that they're able to produce. Probably the entire value chain understanding is something that the organizations must put forward to them.
Great. Anil, thank you so much. I think that's a thing that all learning and development teams have been talking about, is bring about that business orientation in our people to be able to connect upskilling, reskilling to business metrics. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And just to add on, sorry, I just made a mention of, so hence the one of the best ways of, you did ask and I didn't respond to that about, what is it that the organizations can do about it? Probably it's internal mentoring programs, right? And there are leaders, who come forward, or there are experts who come forward to partner with us when we reach out to them and say, fine, this is a complete manufacturing or a supply chain processes, which is intensive with digital practices. Would you want to partner and probably learn of how the things happen so that you can do your work better? So internal mentoring programs where people volunteer to come forward, learn and accept is the best way that this technical digital practices can be learned.
Absolutely. And just taking that learning in the flow of work a little forward, mentoring, job shadowing, great ways to do this. Rituraj, your comments on this?
So three things as skills, part of my response to skills. Number one is speed. Is a skill. As a skill, we need to really focus on a lot. Number two is adaptability to the changing dynamic and unforeseeable things that are happening. That is what we have actually realized now in the changing times. We need to pick up the most. And number three is very interestingly, we need to be on the, and we know all this earlier also, but we need to be on the solution side, not on the problem side. Tremendous example of this is the COVID time. India's approach towards COVID as a team, and the rest of the world approach. Rest of the world was towards problem. We were more towards solution. You highlighted about it, the fact that we've got the cheapest and fastest vaccine. We got the most extensive vaccination. We got the technology adoption, the much touted challenges adoption by 140 billion people in terms of Arogya Setu. We got all these social distancing norms followed by people, such a huge number. We got lockdown norms followed by people. On a fingertip, we could know within 500 meters how many cases are there around me. Imagine the amount of security it gave me mentally. Absolutely. All this happened, and we had the extensive supply chain distribution, interconnectedness between forces, armed forces, Navy for the distribution of vaccines, etc., across the length and breadth of geography. As a team, we achieved this because we were on the side of solution. At Lupin, we have figured this out. Similarly for ourselves, how do we consciously, by design, remain always on the side of solution and not just get stuck at the problem? And therefore, what does it mean for us to become much better in the way we are looking at business compared to past? This is what we have actually seen. So my answer is three things: speed, adaptability, and most importantly, to be always on the solution side. We have seen this as a nation. We've been part of that solutioning through those 3-4 years. Second part of your question, which is measuring the impact of skill development on business matrices. Business matrices, either cost reduction or productivity enhancement or system enhancement. One of these three things. No other business metrics is there. And this impact measurement of skill development would always be a mix of quantitative as well as qualitative. Qualitative meaning word of mouth. All those who get impacted with this input that you are providing, how they are seeing this applicable and how they are finding that useful for their bottom line deliverable. So that is the word of mouth that goes on consistent, significantly gains a lot of traction, becomes qualitative part of the component. Quantitative is obviously cost, productivity, system enhancement. There will be many fathers to that success, absolutely no problem. But somewhere there will be a line of sight that will be established. We need to keep one more thing in mind, though you did not really ask me specifically on this. I'm seeing as a clear trend of L&D becoming not any longer just a modularized effort. It is now becoming a conversational effort.
Yeah.
Conversation and L&D purpose or point of view, a conversation itself should generate some learning, some insights, some really, carry forwards for the both sides to be able to do things better than before. So L&D is now growingly becoming more and more conversational rather than, meet me on Friday 9 to 5, I'll give you learning.
Right. I think great alignment between what you and Anil mentioned in terms of alignment with business orientation and conversational, which is closely reflecting in the mentoring process. So thank you so much for your inputs. Before I move to Rajiv, I do want to bring in Sundar as well onto this conversation that we just had with Anil and Rituraj. I saw Sundar nodding his head quite a few times, and Sundar is in a very special space, given his L&D background and then moved to the business role that he took on. Also during the pandemic, leading a country and facing quite a few challenges there, operational challenges, strategic challenges, and addressing that. So Sundar, just want to bring you in. Any thoughts as you heard both Anil and Rituraj with their comments?
No, actually, nothing else to add. I mean, completely agree. I think the whole the way they framed it around agility, being on the side of the solution. I think and I love the way Rituraj framed it, because I think one of the challenges in digital is you can fall in love with your own ideas and lose sight of what you're trying to solve for. So I think keeping that front and center, what is the business problem you're solving for, is good advisory.
Great. So I think the essence really is being aligned to the business metrics and the business orientation. So thank you, Sundar. Thanks for your inputs. That brings us to the tech part of this, right? So I want to bring in Rajiv into this conversation. And Rajiv, if you can talk to us a little bit about what emerging trends do you foresee in the digital transformation in pharmaceutical industry? And how do you see these trends shaping the industry's workforce and operations in the coming years?
All right. Great question, Ritwik. Thanks for that. And lovely listening to the other panelists as well. So I think Sundar framed it very nicely. There has been upstream innovation, application of digital in R&D, drug discovery, and all of that. Downstream with respect to sales, marketing, outreach, and so on. I think the one area where the industry has really transformed itself on is patient outcomes, right? Going from the focus, and I think Sundar mentioned this as well, going beyond the pill, right? So that's going beyond just a product to an end-to-end solution. So the idea there being, how do we own the customer or the patient's end-to-end experience, right? Which would mean that you go beyond the pill, go beyond a particular location, not just your primary healthcare location, but this is really care anywhere, right? And how do you deliver this at scale, anytime, anywhere, and how do you take a solution-based approach, keeping the patient right in the center, right? So that's application of design thinking, that's application of data, analytics, and so on. So a lot of technologies have come together to enable this tremendous focus on patient outcomes, right? And so if you just take the patient journey map, right, applying design thinking to it, on the one hand, you would want to conduct education and awareness programs just to raise levels of awareness. And so the right amount of information has to go to the right kind of people who need it at the right time, right? How do you then do the segmentation of your audience? So that's a big focus area. Second is early detection, and that too at scale, right? Before things can, become worse and, putting a lot of pressure on the system. How do you use technology for early detection? So that's where you find a lot of, innovation with respect to what they call as computational pathology or digital pathology, right? So today, a lot of innovation is going on. And I was talking to my brother who's in AstraZeneca. He was giving me some buzzwords. Proteomics apparently is a big thing right now. So where if you look at cancer patients, protein expression in the body, something is off with that. So how do you use samples of maybe urine or blood, something that can be collected very easily? How do you use that to do early detection?
Audio. Sorry, Rajiv, would you be able to repeat what you said? Because I think we lost your audio for a minute there.
Okay, no problem. Happens in a digital program or digital session. So what I was saying is, looking at the patient journey map, starting from educational awareness, how do you send the right information to the right people, raising the level of awareness to early diagnosis. Today, using computational pathology or digital pathology, you are able to use AI on blood samples for identifying protein expression at a cellular level. And the cost or the price points of that is declining rapidly, right? So today you are able to deploy this at a physician level, and you are able to detect early stages of various ailments, pretty early on. And of course, when it comes to actual patient-centric, diagnosis and actual outcomes, we need to speak about personalized drugs, right? So, be it 23andMe and genetic, personalized drug manufacturing and discovery. I think there is tremendous progress that's happening at that level. And also, when it comes to sustainability, I think this was discussed earlier. The one trend that I'm tracking right now is how in the packaging of drugs today, paper is going away, which means that you still need access to that information. Patients need to be able to look at what the ingredients are and what are the doctors saying about it. Today, you're able to give a multimedia experience around the drug. You remove paper, but you're digitizing that entire experience. So, again, patient outcomes, I think, is the biggest driver as I see it. And a lot of digital technologies are coming into play. So AI, obviously, when it comes to digital pathology, computational pathology, genetic stuff happening with personalized healthcare. And today, wearables, I think Rutraj was talking about wearables. So Abbott has a product called Freestyle Libre, which is a glucose monitor. It monitors your glucose level 24/7. And suddenly you need a data strategy, right? So it's no longer enough if you say I have a great drug or a product, but you also need a companion data product, right? And that's the biggest transformation that's going on with many of these firms as well. So broadly, these are the trends that I'm tracking. And with respect to skills that need to be built, one, I think from a mindset to begin with, right? The ability to think in terms of ecosystems. Organizations are talking in terms of innovation hubs, because you truly have public-private partnership. You've got ecosystems of doctors, patients, and providers, and startups now coming into the fray as well. How do you stitch together or facilitate that level of innovation? So that's, I think, a mindset shift. It's not a not invented here syndrome. It can be invented anywhere, but how do we plug that into our ecosystem? That I think is a crucial one. Being data minded is big. Being patient centric, I think that's a mindset as well. And being agile in everything that we do, so that we are able to bring products faster to market. I think these are certain mindsets and skill sets that will become very important as we go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Rajiv, for sharing that. I think your response is at the heart of the problem that we are all seeing, which is a lot of organizations, and somebody alluded to this as well, as create an app, and I think we are on a digital transformation journey. No, you have to think about it from a holistic perspective, starting from the patient outcome, draw backward integration, like a lot of you mentioned. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to come back to you, Rajiv, just after my question to Sundar, to talk about, since you spoke about patient outcome, what would that transformational journey or roadmap look like? But before that, I want to go to Sundar and just ask, if you could highlight some best practices that have emerged from successful digital transformation initiatives, using anecdotes, case studies, real life examples.
Sure. I think, before we talk about best practices, I do want to outline that the casualty rate when it comes to digital interventions is quite high. The reason it's important to underline that is because, in forums like these, sometimes you don't want the audience to feel that, look, you try something and it's a rolling success.
Right.
You work on a bunch of problems, some get converted into use cases, most of them don't see the day of light, many of them fail, and then a few succeed. So this is in that category, just to frame it in a realistic manner, right? So I'll give you two examples, very specific. One is an internal example, and one is an outside-in example of how we look at innovation and promote that, right? So an internal example would be straightforward, right? So we've been, as a company, we've been looking at omni-channel, which is sort of new for pharmaceuticals, but has been around and fairly evolved in the fintech, edtech, and the consumer world, so to say. But what we're able to do now is to be able to meaningfully track the customer journey, that our typical healthcare practitioner goes through. They're interacting with my sales rep, they're responding or not, choosing not to respond to an email, to a WhatsApp. They're spending some time on what we call doctor networking platforms. This is the LinkedIn equivalent of doctors, so to say. They're coming into mybrand.com or my portal or my brand specific website, so to say. So obviously there are all these touch points, and we're able to today, using marketing automation, bring this all together and simply surface in front of a sales rep what we call a customer 360 view, which is literally a half-page snapshot of what this journey has been like, with a very clear nudge to the sales rep to say, well, this is what we believe the customer is getting hooked onto, or this is the conversation that may sort of give you a little bit of stickiness or attention inside the clinic, because that conversation between the customer and my sales colleague is no more than 2 to 3 minutes, 4 minutes at best, right? And that's typically the industry norm, depending on what portfolio you're handling. So the idea is, if you're going to deliver an elevator pitch, do you want to go in with a canned elevator pitch, given how limited time you have in front of the customer? Or do you want to be informed by how she has chosen to engage with us, not just through the sales rep channel, but through multi-channel, and then have some sort of a handle on what could be of more value in the 2 to 3 minutes that you have in front of the customer? That's what we've solved for from an infrastructure, automation, how the data comes together point of view. I think what we're trying to solve for now is to bring in the behavior that marries with all this sophistication that we've achieved in infrastructure, to say, well, the ability of the rep now to be able to use this, one, the willingness of the rep to be able to use this, creating a compelling reason for her to be able to see value in doing this. I think that's the shift we are making. The other practice that we do quite well, Rajiv spoke about 23andMe, a leading consumer genetics and research company. Not many people know GSK is actually a strategic investor in that company. And that's a great example. And that's what pharmaceutical companies are doing. We're going behind, we're partnering with innovative providers. 23andMe is one example. A big pharma company is recognized they're not going to be able to solve all the problems themselves. So they're now becoming strategic partners with these new innovative providers out there in the market, trying to get a skin in the game. What we do locally in the Indian context is we actually work with a couple of providers in the startup ecosystem, and we run a mentoring program for them, right? Basically, what happens is these startup ecosystem providers filter great, ideas which are at the incubation stage, specifically in the healthcare domain. And these would typically be about a dozen ideas. They'll bring it to us internally as a company. The value that we add is help them understand the government regulations. So many of us in the country leadership then mentor these startups. And it's a very educative process for us as leaders. And what they get is understand how to commercialize their ideas, how to work with the regulator, how to go into market, skills that large companies are very good at. And what we get exposed to is, the new ideas that are out there, right? I'll give you one example. I mean, there's one company that's using acoustics sound to be able to detect, early markers of cardiac problems, right? Just you speak into a device and it tells you, it gives you a reflection of heart health, right? That's just one example, and there are many out there. So the point I'm making is, I think that's a tangible thing that most large companies can do, agnostic of sectors, which is, you've got in India today, you've got such a vibrant startup community. Most large companies can consider mentoring, coaching some of these companies, and it doesn't really have to be even a financial investment, although that's always an option, but just offer them what you know from a large company point of view. And in return, you will be significantly educated as a leadership team about the kind and the quality of innovation that's going there. And that's going to change your perspective as you go and implement. And I'll wrap up by saying, finally, in terms of what it takes to get all this done, I mean, I frame it as the 3 T's, which is the tone at the top. What's your leadership narrative? Is it really sticky? Is it consistent? Is it long term? Right. You've got to train in the middle, I think, which is where probably a company like KNOLSKAPE comes into play as well. Do you have a base swell of awareness? I mean, it's not just enough for the leadership to say the right things. Can you get the critical mass of your middle managers on board? And then you track at the bottom. Do you have meaningful KPIs that you measure? Do you have reward and recognition system? I mean, beyond a point, people don't do things for the love of digital or for the love of the company. I mean, there's got to be money on the table. There's got to be a recognition framework. Have you thought through all that? And if you get that tone at the top, training in the middle, tracking at the bottom, right, you give yourself a reasonably good chance of success. And the caveat, like I said, is be prepared, have an operating environment which is willing to take high levels of casualty, because you'll do 10 interventions, maybe 1 or 2 of them will work, and you have to be okay with that idea. And that's the operating environment you need for digital transformation.
Right. Love the 3 T's, Sundar. Thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, a push or a nudge to all of us to start looking at best practices from other industries and partnering, especially with the startup ecosystem. Thank you so much, Sundar. Rajiv, I'm going to come to you very quickly, 1 or 2 minutes, if you can help us wrap this, summarize this in terms of what kind of a digital transformation roadmap looks like for a typical pharma company.
Right. So fantastic question again. So the way I think about it is from 4 stages, right? One is, do we know digital? To, I think, the point that Anil was talking about as well, maybe there is a digital literacy problem that's there in the organization, and different organizations can be in different starting points. So knowing digital, and then you've got doing digital, which is, okay, now that I know something, am I able to put that into practice? Right. So that's the second element. The third element is being digital, right? Which is the ecosystem within the organization and outside. Do we have a supportive environment? Do we have digital champions? Do we have the right leadership models? To Sundar's point as well, are we able to embrace failures, smart failures? So those are cultural elements. And then finally, you are being digital, which is your second nature. So depending on the starting point we are looking at, and of course the audience within the organization, this could be functional in outlook, it could be geography based, right? Depending on the maturity level, you would pick a different starting point. And then of course, when you look at the what of the training or the learning process, obviously we cannot ignore mindset.
Right.
Then we have to look at skill set. Then of course, tool set, which is all enabled, right? And many panelists spoke about this today as well. So it's very easy to launch an app, very difficult to get the adoption going. So how do you enable people to use that tool set on the job, right? So mindset, skill set, tool set, and then the four potential starting points, right? So those are, I think, broadly the design principles one could use to think about digital transformation in a pharma setup.
Great. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you so much for summarizing that for us. From me, there are three clear takeaways: business orientation, solution orientation, mindset orientation. I think if I have to encapsulate all the ideas coming in, these are the three big circles and the intersection of that leading to successful digital transformation. Not a casualty like Sundar mentioned. Great use of that word. Thank you so much for your time. Very engaging, very insightful. I'm sure we are live on YouTube. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of hits, a lot of interest that people will have to view the video and get insights. I know we do have some questions from the audience, but we are very cognizant of the time as well. I do have to hand over the floor to Amelia for the next segment. We will respond back to the audience questions offline. Amelia?
Sure. Yes, thank you, Dr. Ridwick, and thank you all panelists. I think that was a wonderful and very profound share. Okay, just a quick introduction. I'm Amelia Lim from KNOLSKAPE with the APAC team. And I'd like to maybe take a couple of minutes to, maybe for the benefit of some of our attendees who are probably, not too familiar with us in KNOLSKAPE. I'll just like to share perhaps some background of what we have, who we are, what we do, and okay, I hope that's all visible. And also, more specifically, how do we relate, and what are some of the approaches that we take with the pharmaceutical industry? So very quickly, we are here essentially to help organizations and leaders become future ready. And we do that through experiential learning, and that's the key. What's the buzz out there is that 70-20-10 approach, right? So very quickly, sorry, I think my mouse is a little bit digital again. Yes, some issues. Yeah, okay. So very quickly, we are headquartered in Singapore, all right, with presence in these few countries. We have worked across the globe with over 400 organizations in bringing that experiential learning approach to their upskilling and reskilling initiatives. So what we do essentially in a very short, brief introduction is in these three aspects. Obviously, we have leadership readiness, right? And these are very classic, approaches of what our human resource and learning and development teams do: succession management, leadership development, and to bring it up, at that scale, which I think was quite a common theme brought up earlier on. How do we also make sure and ensure that we have that culture readiness? And this is through sustainable, right? And I think I did see a question relating to sustainability. And I think that culture is something very related to how we can actually, ensure the sustainability of our initiatives and efforts throughout. And of course, last but not least, for what we are here for, digital readiness is a piece of where we help and also partner and collaborate with our clients to build a digital-first workforce. And this is not so much of, personally, I think it's not so much of, how do we build stronger competitive advantage? Not only that, but also how do we be ready and ride the waves of change? I always like to use this anecdote of, if you are not riding the waves, you actually get washed away by the wave of change, right? So this is how we build future readiness across levels in an organization. And to that note, right, we have KNOLSKAPE Digital Academy. And this is where we curate and also have very specific engagements and programs in relation to some of the skills and competencies that I think we have also talked about across during our panel discussion earlier. And just to share how we have helped organizations build their digital capabilities. Now, we centered upon 3 pillars of digital transformation. I think the word mindset has came about quite often, right? So we talk about having that mindset, right? How do we approach in that area? Digital mindset. How do we then also encourage that digital leadership competencies into play? And finally, the culturing bit, right? Digital culture. And as we all know, right, throughout the journey, depending on where we are, there's many different levels of interventions which we could embark upon, whether it's from a fundamental awareness building, enablement in terms of capability building, or even up to that strategic level, right? I know it's a little bit small here, but I'd probably like to, bring to light an example related to our pharmaceutical friends here. One of the transformation stories, which I think was really profound, was, we worked with a global pharma giant, okay? They were at the forefront of experimenting with digital. And I think one of the challenges back then was, how do we broad base the innovation efforts right down the line and across the organization? And what we partnered upon was, to roll out a digital foundation, leadership and strategy courses across their companies over 30 plus countries around the world, right? Now, what's staggering is the outcome. We all talked about, innovation and speed to market as well, right? I think it was Anil who actually mentioned also, how do we do that with speed and scale? So the outcomes that were significant and manifested throughout the entire transformation journey was a faster time to market, where they actually brought their products right up to the shelves. Culture transformation, that people part of things. And I think one more thing, we also talked about business, right? Orientation. I think Dr. Wick summarized what we have spoke about earlier on, the business orientation. This has also led to identification of new revenue streams. And I think this is something which, all organizations would like to be in the forefront of, right? So just to reiterate as well, I think Rajiv has shared some transformational journey, and I've put this in a more visible format. We talked about, at different stages, we start off with that mindset and awareness building. So it entails knowing digital, right? And then we come to that capability enablement, right? Doing digital. What are the skills, competencies related to enable our people to be able to perform, right, in this digital ways of working, becoming digital and eventually being digital. So that's where the culturing part comes into play. And I think also worthy to note, was it Rituraj, I think, also mentioned about digital hackathons, right? And we actually also have come across and also collaborated with several organizations in providing that digital hackathon initiative, and we saw tremendous results from those engagements as well. All right. So now what
Anil mentioned.
So Anil, yes, sorry about that. Anil, thank you for bringing that up as well. So now just a very quick mention as well. The entire approach is actually built upon the foundations of a framework which we call clearing the digital blur. And this is a piece of research done by our CEO himself, which essentially details, okay, blur essentially is an acronym of boundaryless organizations, limitless digitization, unbounded innovation, and relentless iteration. Now, these are the shifts that has happened, is still happening, and will still happen, if you will, right? And what we say is that, leaders, the type of leaders needed to navigate this kind of shifts and disruptions, correspondingly would be, you need networked leaders, you need sense-making leaders, you need design leaders, agile leaders, right? And to a higher extent, from a company perspective, from an organizational culture perspective, correspondingly, you need open peering and sharing cultures. You need a data-driven culture, diverse and inclusive, also a fail-fast culture. Notwithstanding in today's day and age where innovation churns out in such a fast and rapid scale, right? And to that, we have also identified very specific competencies, which involves, organizational dexterity, social intelligence, computational thinking, etc. Right? So now, having said that, now we all know and we all spoke about, transformation. It all starts with the mindset, right? And here we have also identified mindsets relevant to each and every one of this shifts that we have mentioned, being a fluid mindset, insight-driven mindset, exponential, and also a continuous learning mindset, right? So now coming to a piece which is more specific to what our topic of interest is about today. I think most panelists, and also I think we have also spoke about, Rajiv has also spoke about some of the trends. And obviously popularization of beyond the pill has came up quite a number of times, right? And of course, data. We all say that data is the new oil today. How do we use and leverage data effectively to help with, our decision-making, our innovation initiatives? And last but not least, also the new age digital mindset that we are all, facing today, right? So again, medical trackers, wearable trackers, sensors, apps, those are the trends that we have been seeing all around. And I'd like to share a very quick experience I had actually with a relative in this era. He had a pacemaker, right? It was a digital one. And, one day he got a call from his clinic and saying that, hey, can you come in for a quick checkup? Because we have tracked, there was a flag on your readings. And that itself was profound, how it actually helped with that peace of mind. I think Anil and also Sundar also has mentioned about, giving patients, giving people, loved ones, and I think Rajiv has also mentioned that peace of mind and security that you're well taken care of. That patient experience, in fact, is, amazing. So, how do we navigate with all these changes that comes along our way? And, also talking about data, because, we deal with a lot of data generated from all these, apps, sensors, trackers, but how do we then effectively use and also, get insights from this data, right? And last but not least, also, we all know changes happen at a very rapid, fast-paced pace, right? And customer expectations change as well, and it's becoming more complex. And what it essentially means is that our people, ranging from our researchers churning out with that drug discovery process, right up to our frontliners, our sales process. And I think Sundar brought this up, which I truly also resonate with. We see an increasing focus and shift to the downstream process where commercial, right? How do you equip and enable our frontliners, our people that talks to patients, to doctors? How do we get them on this forefront of very fast, rapid changes in consumer behavior, right? So what we have identified also and relate some competencies to these trends that are happening around, things like innovation, critical thinking. How do you also use visualization techniques to interpret and articulate your findings? How do you, also go about that transformational change, right? How do you manage and lead those? And also some of these competencies involve how do you be agile, right? And some of these solutions that we have on hand are simulation programs, which are engaging. It's a totally, safe space for you to fail and, practice and adopt your skills learned and competencies picked up in modules such as design thinking, critical thinking, data visualization, digital transformation, and so on and so forth, right? So these are some of the trends and also some of the areas that we work very closely with our clients. And last but not least, we also work and collaborate with some of our partners here within the pharma industry. And thank you so much, team, for and also to all our attendees here for that very brief share. And before I hand it back to Dr. Ritwick, and yeah, please feel free have your questions on the chat screen, and we will try to attend to all of those questions and tailing. Thank you. Over to you, Dr.
Before everybody leaves, I'm just launching a feedback poll as well. Please do take a minute to answer that. Thank you. Ritvik, would you like to take a couple of questions or should we wrap up?
I think we are on time. We are already a minute over. We've got our panelists for a certain amount of time. So I do want to thank our audience as well as thank our panelists for giving us this time. And a lot of insights coming in. And I'm sure the audience has certain takeaways from this session. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sundar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.